everybody, it's Mr. Wagstaff. Cool stuff to talk about today. So today, we're going to be talking about the specific concepts that deal with law in America. Basically, what we hang our hats on, what are major concepts that we hope to accomplish and the general concepts that we follow in the American legal system. Yesterday, we had talked about the history of law, kind of large-scale codification of laws, the benefits of that. What we're going to talk about today is start narrowing down to the American form of law, how court systems work, how laws are enforced, and what kind of our motivating beliefs are behind the way we do law. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so it's all going to start today with a term called due process. So due process is a term used in our Constitution, in the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution, which is in the Bill of Rights. Pivotal, extremely important, because due process basically means if you're arrested and you're going to be punished by the government, which is how, police, and you commit a crime, you're arrested by the government. You're not arrested by Billy down the street. You're arrested by the government. There has to be a process, a fair process to go through. And it goes on to spell this out pretty in depth on how due process is going to work. Due process is incredibly important in our free society because almost every corrupt government ever, and when I say almost, you can go ahead and say every corrupt government since the beginning of time has manipulated the courts to be able to put people in jail that they didn't like. It's just the way it works. We knew this when we created the Constitution. We didn't want that to happen, so we created these concepts that we use in our legal system still to this day to prevent the government from abusing the court system. And also, the last thing we want to do is put an innocent person in jail. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, about that idea. So, what is the definition of due process? It's the constitutional protection against unfair governmental actions and laws. It basically sets out a rule book that the government has to follow in order to convict somebody of a crime. The rights to due process is clearly outlined in the Fifth Amendment, which is the Bill of Rights, which was added on before the Constitution was ever officially accepted. So it's been there since the beginning. The 14th Amendment is going to come out after the Civil War, gave African Americans citizenship, said all citizens are the same under the eyes of the law, and clarified due process that you can't have certain rules for certain people and not those rules for others, or vice versa. Everybody is the same. So the Fifth Amendment is the big one that talks about due process. And the actual terminology that it uses is no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And then there's like a whole bunch of different parts of it that clarify what due process is and what these rules are that they have to follow. All right. Due process is extremely important in a free society. It's absolutely necessary. If you want a free society, which means that the people control the government and not the opposite, all right? The people can't be wrongly thrown in prison for not liking the government. So there's these rules put in place to prevent the government from just throwing the people in jail that either want to overthrow them, that talk trash about them, that are pointing out all the things they're doing wrong. There's a million different reasons that the government would love to just throw people in jail if they could. In some countries that don't have due process, that happens. We have due process here, and that is why it's so important, is to make sure that the government doesn't have the authority to just silence people. So while it is designed to make sure that the government is held accountable by the people and they can't just get people to shut up, while it holds the government accountable, the same concepts in due process are very, very important in all aspects of the court system, criminal, civil cases, tort, and all of that, which we'll talk about in future lessons. But the question here is, why is due process an important part of any free society? What could happen if we didn't have due process? So we just talked about that. Pause me, answer that completely, and we'll move on. All right, here's some parts of due process. Habeas corpus. It's a Latin. All right. So these are some of the things that are spelled out in the Constitution to guarantee you have due process. So it's like due process has to be fair. Like, well, here are some of the specific rules, like habeas corpus. If you're arrested and you're put in jail, they have to tell you, and it varies a little bit. Within 24 hours is the general thing. They have to tell you why you got arrested. I mean, duh. They come to your house and they put you in handcuffs and they take you to jail. They're required to tell you why you are being arrested. They have to. All right. If they don't, you can go. That's the rules. So the reason they do that is because in places like England, and I'm just using England as an example, there's a lot of places that do this. If you don't like somebody as a government, what you could do is you could just show up and you could arrest them and you could go put them in jail. And then just keep them there. Like, oh yeah, your court date's coming up at some point. And at no point actually charge them with anything. You just don't like them. This is a common occurrence in a lot of countries in Europe. Before we created our Constitution, we wanted to make sure that didn't take place here. So habeas corpus, you have to be told why you are going to jail. Another big one is in America, and we spell this out. We're going to assume that you're innocent until we can prove that you're guilty. That's big. In other countries, you're assumed you're guilty and you have to prove your innocence. Not in America. In America, you are innocent until they can prove that you're guilty. All right? So we're going with the presumption of innocence. If you committed a crime, or somebody does, not you, you would never commit a crime. But if somebody commits a crime and the government can't prove it, you're innocent. Now, that might seem crazy. And it happens occasionally when everybody knows Sally committed this crime over here. But she goes free. The reason that is designed that way is they would much rather Sally, the occasional Sallys in the world who committed a crime and go free because they couldn't prove it, they would rather that happen than put Sally in prison if she didn't commit a crime because she couldn't prove her innocence. She couldn't prove she didn't do something. It's hard to prove a negative. So our court system is designed to where if we have to choose, would you rather occasionally let a guilty person go or occasionally put an innocent person in jail? We would rather occasionally let a guilty person go. Now, not that it doesn't happen and mistakes are made and innocent people absolutely get arrested and put in jail, but it's not that common. It does happen, and you can Google it and find it all the time, but percentage-wise, it is very uncommon. One of the things that is also spelled out is you get to have a impartial tribunal. So you commit a crime, all right? You get to go and an impartial tribunal gets to hear the case. Like a judge, all right? Somebody that's not involved with it. Like in a previous lesson, we talked about if you have a tree and it falls on your neighbor's goat, who's responsible for that? All right. Is it the goat guy because he shouldn't have his goat near a tree, or is it you if it's your tree that falls? Like, where does that happen in that situation? And say it assumes you broke the law because you're the tree person. You would go in front of a judge who knows nothing about this goat or this tree or anything. Like I don't know anything about it. What's happening now? You tell me about it. Because the last thing you want to do is if your tree falls on your neighbor's goat and then you show up to see who the judge is and it's the dude that owns the goat. Not good. So they want to make sure that when you go to court that the people that are hearing this, like the judges and the people involved, don't actually have any connection to it. This is why sometimes when a huge event happens, like a criminal act in a town and everybody knows about it in the town, when they go to court, everybody's already heard about this and already has an opinion on it. Sometimes they have to go somewhere completely separate to have the trial because it's not impartial there. And so that can happen, especially in today's day and age with the internet and whatnot. Another thing that is spelled out, and I think this is cool. All of it's cool, is a jury trial. All right. So a jury trial is a trial by your peers. This is pretty important. All right. If you get arrested for doing something bad, I keep saying you're not a criminal. That's why we're just going to play pretend. All right. So if you or me get arrested for doing something wrong, and I go in front of a judge and they hear about everything that happened, they're trying to prove it. You know, I might be dirt poor farmer Joe over here and judge be rich aristocrat. Is how it was designed. Could still be the same thing today. We're in different social stratospheres. All right. He might not understand my lifestyle, and I may not be able to, defend myself in an effective way so that he and his lifestyle could understand it. So what we do in America, and a lot of other places have done this as well, is we have a jury. So they go randomly get people from the community, and you're required to. This is a responsibility that you have as a citizen of the United States. If they pick you for jury duty, you got to go do it. They pick you, you show up, and you have to sit here and listen to this case. You're not supposed to know who the defendant is, the guy that's in trouble. You're not supposed to know anybody else there. You're supposed to listen to it and decide, is this guy guilty or not? So by doing it that way, you're supposed to have a jury of your peers that basically rule on that. So, it's people just like you, same social, same town, same culture. So they can decide, is this a crime that this person committed? So it tries to take the eliteness out of the legal system by having the jury, the people who actually make the decision whether you're guilty or not, be people like you, jury of the peers. Now, I got some cartoons here. I think you might like. This is a cat here saying, "I don't like the look of that jury," because it's all mice. Obviously, the mice aren't going to be very sympathetic to the cat. And then the lion here is saying, "You call that a jury of my peers?" And it's all the things that the lion eats. They're not going to be very sympathetic to him. The reason I throw this in here is because this is funny. Like, ha ha ha, that's funny. It's funny because it seems ridiculous. There have been failures of justice over time. A lot of things we have fixed gradually over time. One of the things that used to be, black people, African Americans, were not allowed to serve on juries. So if an African American in the early 1900s, especially like in the South, in extremely racist areas where racism and white supremacy were extremely prevalent, if an African American got arrested for a crime and went on trial, the entire jury is white people. Which is completely different cultures, society at the time, because it was segregated. And it was pretty similar to the cat looking at the mice, or more likely a mouse looking at the cats as a jury. So while this is up here to be funny, I also want to reference, this is not far from what has happened. So even though we have all these things designed to make it fair in our legal system, we have at times failed at different parts. We've gotten more right than we have gotten wrong, but we have absolutely failed at times, and we are acknowledging it generally as a society and trying to move forward, but it didn't always work perfectly to start with. So the question here, what is the benefit in the justice system for the accused, the person that's being accused of a crime, to be tried by their peers and not just a panel of judges? So answer that completely, and we'll move on. All right, so here's some other stuff that exists under the due process. You have a right to counsel. Gideon v. Wainwright is a Supreme Court case we're going to talk about in detail at the end of this unit, so I'm not going to spoil it here, in which they realize people having the access to a lawyer, fundamentally important thing to have, that is a necessity in order to have a fair legal system. So we'll talk about that at the end. All right, so here's some of the other stuff in the due process, some of the rules that you have that they're designed to help people that are accused of something. First one is, it's called Pleading the Fifth. Talking about the Fifth Amendment. One of the things the Fifth Amendment says, and it says a lot, talks about the due process, you do not have to incriminate yourself. It's the state's responsibility or the federal government's responsibility to prove that you're a criminal, that you stole that TV. I'm just making stuff up. You didn't steal a TV. Again, you're not a criminal. I didn't steal the TV. We'll say me. So the reason they do this is because if they put you on trial and they put you up on the stand and say you are accused of stealing a TV, sorry, it's just going to keep happening today. If you're accused of stealing a TV and you're like, no, I didn't steal the TV. The problem is then you've broken another law, which is lying under the oath, which it's not your responsibility to prove your innocence or guilt. You are innocent under the eyes of laws until they can prove that you're guilty. So you don't have to testify for yourself. They can't make you go talk. Plead the fifth. I don't want to talk about it. Okie dokie. And they have to go find other people to prove their case. So pleading the fifth, because it puts you in a really awkward position to try to defend yourself, but you don't have to, because you don't have to defend yourself. It is their responsibility to prove that you are guilty. You can take the stand, but that's why most people don't, is they're not going to incriminate themselves, and they don't have to. Some random ones here. Double jeopardy. If you're accused of a crime and you are acquitted, which means they decided, you know what? You didn't go out and steal that puppy. I don't know. I'm not good at crimes. You didn't go out and steal that puppy. You're acquitted. And then they afterwards find video evidence that you went out and stole that puppy. They can't try you again. They get one shot of trying to convict you. And if they don't do it, they can never try you again. Even if you went out and admitted to it, they can't ever try you again for the same crime. It's called double jeopardy. The reason that they do that is they don't want the government to constantly be arresting somebody over and over and over and trying to prove that they did something wrong. And then you're in this endless maze of the same due process over and over and over for the same thing. By eliminating double jeopardy, they get one shot at it, so they better make sure that they know what they're doing before they put you on trial. The next one is the right of appeal. Say you get convicted, though. This is different. If you're convicted, yes, you committed this crime and you feel like you didn't, or the trial was unfair, or due process wasn't followed, you can appeal that. Basically, you can point out what was wrong, or why you don't think it was fair, and there's a whole appeals court that will hear this. And if they decide that either a due process wasn't followed or that something was wrong, even if you're convicted, if they have to agree to it, though, because everybody tries to have a new trial after they're convicted, if they feel like it was not fairly done, they start the whole trial over again. That's not double jeopardy because you've been convicted. It can't get worse than that. So if you're convicted, you want a new trial commonly just because you want to, try again at it. That is not double jeopardy. Double jeopardy is where they find you not guilty. They can never get you in trouble for that same crime again because they already decided you were not guilty. They get one shot at it. So the question is, why are there so many amendments and laws that protect people that might actually be criminals? What's the thought process of those who wrote these laws? I'm kind of talking about this. Why would they want the occasional Sally, who might be a criminal, to go free? Why would they rather have that than having the occasional Sally that's innocent go to jail? So pause me, answer that in complete sentences, and we'll move on. All right, other court officials. All right, this is the person, the clerk of superior court. This is actually the deputy court clerk who does a lot of stuff for the clerk of court. But this is commonly who people see for basically, this isn't somebody in a robe. They deal with a lot of like legal stuff. So if you need to show up for legal documents, you need to pay pay fines, administer oaths, name changes, marriage license, birth certificates, adoptions and stuff. When you have to go to court for that, this is typically the type of person that you're going to see. So somebody at a desk that's the one that has the authority to do stuff. Not typically somebody that's in a robe. Not everything that happens at the court is like in a courtroom. And a lot of times what happens in the courtroom is not nearly what you see on TV. All right? Because in the courtroom, typically, you're not actually going to see a judge. All right? You're going to see a magistrate. All right? So a magistrate, they're kind of like a judge. but they deal with a lot of lesser stuff. They're the ones that deal with a lot of parking tickets and stuff every day. Like petty theft and traffic violations. Oh, you stole Billy's Beanie Babies. Showing my age on that one. Don't do that. $50 fine. You know, like the magistrate deals with lower end stuff, and these are other court officials. The judge, they're the ones that deal with murder trials, and these are elected officials. And depending on where they are in federal government, state government, local. So the judges are higher up, but the magistrates are typically the ones that you see all the time. The magistrates are also the ones that are usually there that if you get arrested, they bring you in front of, and the magistrate tells you what the charges are against you with the whole due process. The district attorney, though, this is interesting. So I just randomly typed in district attorney. This is the district attorney race. That's right. Now, don't be like, oh, they're a race of people. No, they're not. They're not a race of people. This is a political race. It is a political office. It is the attorney general, all right, or the district attorney. Attorney general is the top one. General. The district attorney in each region has in town and city. This one's in Queens, New York. They have a district attorney. So the district attorney is the one who basically pursues charges against criminals. When people get arrested, the district attorney kind of decides how they want to proceed on charges, and they represent the state and the government. The people elect that person. All right, there's only one of them in each district. So because of the district attorney, they are very important on deciding how laws are enforced and who they go after and like who they want to throw the book at and in different communities. It's very important that the district attorney is an elected official because it allows the people to have control over where they want the focus to be in the judicial system in their current district. So the state lawyer, which is the district attorney, because you have the state district attorney as well, which is over the whole state. These are elected officials because it allows the people to have more control over the judicial branch, because different communities have different needs and wants and desires and ideas about law. And by being able to pick the district attorney, they have the ability to really influence how the court system works in their current area. So the question here is why is the district attorney an elected official? Why do the people get a say in who the state lawyer is what the district attorney is? All right, so pause that, answer me completely, and we'll move on. All right, requirements to be on a jury. Here's your basic jury requirements. First off, you got to go. You get a jury summons in the mail, you got to go. Now, because if you meet these criteria right here, you're going on jury duty, or you can get summons. There's a handful. I've actually been summoned and had just had a surgery on my back, and I was like, hey, I can't go. And they were actually like, all right. And I was actually surprised I got out of it. I was like, cool. But then I felt bad because since I teach this, I've never been on a jury. And that's probably going to disqualify me immediately when I show up. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I get to be on jury duty. They're like, nope, go home. We don't want anybody excited to be here because that's just weird. So what they'll do with a jury is they grab, like, we'll say 100 people in the community to show up at the courthouse, and they're getting ready to have a trial, and they got to pick 12 people. So they pick 100 people to be on the jury, and they go through, and the two lawyers on each side, they basically decide until both lawyers, for the defense and the prosecution, agree on the 12 they're both cool with that's going to be impartial, and then everybody else gets to go home. So as a citizen of the United States of America, this is a responsibility you have. You can't say no to this. You can get in a lot of trouble. You don't show up to jury duty, like you get arrested yourself. It's a big responsibility that you have to do as a citizen of the United States. But here's what you have to have. You have to be 18 years old or older. You have to be a citizen of the United States. You have to have free from any felony convictions. Gee, I wonder why they don't want a whole bunch of convicted felons on the jury. Probably because they're like, not guilty, or I don't know. So that is one of the things that will disqualify you from being on a jury is you can't be a convicted felon. being a convicted felon on a jury, since they're convicting people, most likely they're going to be biased since they've been through the court system before and have not had a good experience. So convicted felons are not allowed to be on a jury. You have to be healthy enough to function as a juror. Like, you have to be able to sit there and pay attention. You have to be healthy enough, which is why I was released from this. I had just had back surgery, and it's like a 12-week recovery, and it was like a week later, I'm like, I'm hurt. And they're like, send us a doctor's note. I sent them a doctor's note saying, he hurt. And they're like, all right. And they released me from it. And I'm like the only person in the world who was like upset. I was like, I kind of wish they forced me to, but wouldn't have been good for anybody. Sufficiently intelligent. This one also might have disqualified me as well. I was like, no, he ain't smart enough. So you have to be sufficiently intelligent. You don't have to be smart. You just have to, not have, you can't clearly have a mental disability in which you can't process normal things in society. And you also have to be able to read, write, and comprehend the English language. While America does not have an official English language, or an official language that's English, since court proceedings legally are held in English, you need to be able to understand English in order to be on a jury. So the question here is, why do you think it's a requirement that you haven't been convicted of a felony before you can serve on a jury? All right. Answer that in complete sentences, and that's as much as we're going to get through today. See you guys tomorrow.